Hello, everybody. It's great to be here one more time today. My name is Gary Fowler, and I'm your host. I'm a serial entrepreneur with 17 startups under the belt. I was on the original management team of Click Software, which was sold to Salesforce for 1.35 billion. Also, Eva.ai, an AI HR tech company that I co-founded with Dr. David Yang. At GSD, which is my family office, we believe that intellectual capacity is evenly spread around the world, but opportunities are not. So I'd like to welcome you back to GSD Presents Top Global Startups, where I explore the founders building the future before the rest of the world even sees it coming. Today's conversation is not incremental. It's about optimizing dashboards or adding another feature to your SaaS stack. It's about something much bigger. What happens when software stops being a tool and starts to think? SaaS model, subscriptions, seats, workflows collides with generative intelligence. Joining us today is someone who is not just talking about the shift, he's building it. Patrick Murphy is the co-founder and CEO of Maket, a generative architecture platform transforming how homes are designed and delivered. With over 1 million registered users, Macket empowers homeowners and builders to instantly generate and customize residential floor plans. No architectural background required. Think about that for a moment. Architecture, historically complex, expensive, and slow, now accelerated by AI. Patrick is operating at the intersection of generative AI, housing affordability, sustainability, and platform transformation. And today we're diving into a bold thesis. Is SaaS dying? With that, I'd like to bring Patrick on board. Hi, Patrick.
Hey, pleasure to be here.
So let's start bold. When we say the death of SaaS, what exactly is dying?
I think that the SaaS 2.0 era that we're in is dying, right? Where there's a lot of dashboards, a lot of buttons, button and knobs. I think that's in the process of seeing a pretty rapid death if you take a look at the public markets. So that's what I meant in terms of SaaS dying, and we're stepping into a new, fully autonomous agentic workflow era. It's exciting.
Is SaaS truly disappearing or is it being absorbed in something much larger?
It's a good question. I think that the transition is happening quickly in some verticals and then slower in some other verticals. So you see it a lot within CRM tools and customer success tools. That's being replaced, I think, pretty quickly using agentic workflows. Something like Cloud Code or Cloud Cowork is, I think, replacing a lot of these SaaS toolings. If you look at something like prop tech or construction tech, things are moving much slower, but that change is still coming. We've seen that shift, I think, a lot since ChatGPT came out, with all of the general models coming out. So I think it depends on the verticals. But that's a change, at least, that I'm seeing peaking to other startups and other industries.
How does AGI or generative intelligence fundamentally change? I mean, you look at it, right? In 2016, I started one of the first generative AI companies. It's called Find It.
Mm-hmm.
And people said it wasn't going to happen. It's going to be 25 years. I said, you don't understand. The problem is infobesity data. And by the way, so I used to architect and design houses, my own, and I built like 29 of them. So I've been through knowing what
it.
Plans. Yeah, it's a pain. And then
really
got things like stress analysis and is a structure safe from a physics standpoint, all kinds of things that you may or may not be able to look at.
Yep.
But we're in this new world. We're data. We're driven by data. And yesterday I was speaking in front of the top VCs about durability and innovation, and how can we go down through and move faster but not make mistakes, right? And that's one of the challenges. So how does this, so generative AI is changing the software model, and we're able to do things faster with a lot less folks. But they also hallucinate, right? There's hallucinations take place. The last thing you want to do is find a bathroom on the end of a library with a shower and no toilet. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
How do we go down through and adjust for these hallucinations? And in addition to that, that means trust. When do we get to the point where we actually trust that what it's saying is right?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we started working on this problem back in end of 2021, right? So it's very dusty days in generative AIs before ChatGPT and sort of the generative AI wave that we're in now. Did a lot of research with some research centers here locally in Montreal to be able to really fill out the thesis of how do we generate floor plans using generative AI? I always said that it's a nice complex problem to deal with because we're not generating images, we're not generating text, we're not generating video. Where if it does hallucinate, it's okay. You can sort of fine tune the model and steer it in the right direction. And who really matters, right? Who really cares in terms of if there's hallucinations, because it can always be edited. When you're talking about architecture and building, it has to be 100% accurate, because you don't want, like you were saying, your floor plan to not make sense, or for a beam to fall on somebody's head once it's
Yeah, no, I've been through
structure's
that.
been built,
I've,
right?
I've
So,
personally been through it, and you go down through and you look at it, structurally. I remember I built the basement, and so when I was going down through and doing the analysis, I put 14-foot ceilings in a basement. Well, rarely does anybody ever do that. I just
absolutely,
wanted to
yeah.
have a big maid's
Yep,
quarters. So I
yep,
put this in. Well, guess what? It changed everything, because now I had to have a freaking steel beam running in my basement. I had to have it specially done at a steel construction group to be able
yep,
to fit. And then I put a garage over top of one of the areas in the basement, and to make sure that with the concrete and the cars
yep.
and everything else, I had to make this thing like industrial strength. And those floor plans aren't so easy to do, right? Costs a lot of
Yeah,
money too, by the way.
absolutely,
How
absolutely.
much money? That's another thing, Patrick, when you're doing the floor plans, right?
Hmm.
Compared to an architect, how much money would an architect, let's say you're doing a 4,000 square foot house, how much
Hmm.
would an architect charge to do that? And how much does it cost? Like, what's the scale? How much cheap?
Yeah. Really, it depends on obviously the scale of the project, but sometimes you're looking at 10% of the total project
That's
for
exactly what I was going to
right,
say.
for
You
architectural fees, right?
10%. And how much faster is it?
Oh, I mean, it's instantaneously, right? It's usually it's about a minute or two before you're able to generate a plan. So you're able to really compress a lot of that timeline, what it is, and how we factor in for hallucinations within the model and within the output is that human input, right? So it's not just you put in a text prompt and then it generates a floor plan and you go with that. There's an iteration process, and we had to come up with sort of a new paradigm and a new UI to go around that. With contextual UI, where yes, you will use text to be able to generate the floor plan, but then you're using text to modify that floor plan. There's also contextual UI besides, if you want to make the changes and visually see what the floor plan will look like in 2D and in 3D. So we're combining some of the sort of old world software in a very simple fashion with new agentic workflows to really say, like, you don't need to learn CAD or SketchUp, but it's also like, it's not like, ChatGPT or Claude, where you can just one shot a floor plan, because there will be an iterative process. And we see that a lot with user recordings and with user interactions, is that they want to have that collaboration process. I can speak to this a little bit more later on within the episode, but we want to go even further than floor plans and design, right? It's like we have a huge, massive vision of what we want to build as a company. So floor plans as a start, it's a very simple and essential start, but it's also quite complex to be able to get it right.
One of the things that I used to do, I'll never forget this. So, my first house that I built, I was 21 years old, and that house was about 2,200 square feet.
Hmm.
I'll
Hmm.
never forget. I walked into a bookstore, and they
Hmm.
had these. Remember, you're probably too young, but they had magazines with floor plans in them.
Hmm.
And I took the floor plan. I said, "This floor plan is beautiful." And then I
Hmm.
found a house in an entirely other magazine, and I said,
Hmm.
"What if I take this house in the front and I put this floor plan on it? This thing's going to be beautiful." And because the floor plan on the one was not
Yep.
interesting.
Yep.
And so I went, and to marry those two together, I had to get a architect to be able to help me.
Hmm.
And then I started drawing it up myself. But I said, if I would have had a tool just like yours, I could have done things instantly and
Exactly.
figured out, does this work or not? I had to monkey around with the bathroom. The
Exactly.
first floor was a little bit too narrow, so I had to
Yep.
increase the length of the house by 2
Yep.
feet in order to make it
Yep.
so it was comfortable. Those
Yep.
kind of things. But
Yep.
that's the future, right? Instantly get it
Absolutely.
done, and then you
Yep.
could actually generate a bill of materials based on that. Because if you got two by
Exactly.
four, 2 by 6 walls,
Exactly.
18 inches apart, you got plywood sheeting, you've got Tyvek and Celotex and all that. You could say,
Yep.
what do we want this house? How long do we want this house to last? How strong do
Absolutely.
we need this house? It's just amazing, actually.
Absolutely. And you look at also the urban landscape, right? Where you're looking at, houses in Montreal and the suburbs around Montreal where I live, or in San Francisco, or I was in Japan recently, and they're really different, right? But when you look at the scale of what's possible with Gen AI and being able to combine different types of designs and materials together, I hope that we get sort of a global renaissance movement where it's saying, hey, we're building Japanese looking houses here with the materials that we have here and the aesthetics and styles that we have, and we're optimizing space in a better way, right? It's like this is possible in Texas, right? Where it's like you're going to be able to compress a lot of the livable area because a lot of things around space design they've gotten right in Japan and Asian countries because of
Space
the space issues, right? So that's one of the things I really hope that we're going to be able to do is combine those different styles together. And to your point, you'd be able to do your bill of materials, be able to see how much it costs. I mean, I was in the process of renovating my kitchen last year, and just being able to get a quote of how much it was going to cost, much less, what it was going to look like in the modifications that I wanted to make within that space. Before our platform, it's impossible, right? It's like just getting the quotes from a builder, how many materials you're going to need, what's going to look like. It's a really complicated process that takes the wind out of the sail of anybody who's building or renovating. So there's a huge market, and Gen AI really is the unlock, is taking a bunch of different types of data and unstructured in and be able to bring it into a structured fashion to be able to make decisions, whether it be new build or renovation. So that's something that we're super excited about, and we want to expand the platform even more, right? If you're talking about renovation, sure, how much is it going to cost and what are the materials, but then what's it going to look like? What type of furniture, what type of materials, and being able to see before you make those changes. And one of the big unlocks that we've seen is some of these Gen AI tools like image generation models, you can visually see what the space will look like, but that doesn't tie back to the plan, right? The floor plan really is the starting point to say, this is a real project. I want to see what it looks like. I want to see if it's possible. And then from there, it's the visual elements. So it's a starting point. That's why it's so important to have generation capabilities, floor plan recognition capabilities, editing, optimization, all baked into the platform. And then you can move forward on a solid basis, right? Which just wasn't easy or possible before Gen AI.
I mean, the other thing is what I've thought about is, using some of these tools based on our multi-agent models. If I applied it to and I thought about this, not only the plans but the design of the house, and
Yep.
then I put it back, took my bill of materials and put it up to something, created something like an Upworks
Yep.
for contractors because it doesn't exist. And if I
Absolutely.
took that Upworks for contractors
Yep.
and then rated them, and then whether or not they truly had a certificate and the insurances and all that, and married it together, I could be my own contractor,
Exactly. That's
and
exactly it.
pull the house together, and then
Yep.
take it out to the supply chain where I get to Home Depot or Lowe's or whatever delivering the 2x4s, and now I can start to really keep my costs right. And if I
Yep.
make a plan change, what's the impact going to be on the cost of the house, right?
Exactly. And that's why, like, we always say that we want to eventually we're building towards an all-in-one home platform, right? So it's not just the design, but then it's also, to your point, like, how do you source those general contractors that can work on it, the material providers, the furniture providers, see what's going to look like, see the impacts of the changes that you make to your property, whether it be a new build or a renovation. How does that impact resale value? How does that impact sort of valuation, mortgage, right? Like, all of these things are now possible with Gen AI. And I always say in the past, it would have taken probably millions of lines of code, thousands of engineers to be able to create something like this. And now we're able to build this type of platform with smaller teams because of what Gen AI enables, right? So I think becoming AGI-proof is to say, how do we move from more point solutions that were more traditional in B2B SaaS or even some consumer plays, and really unite them under platform plays with solid distribution? I always say that, like, distribution really is the only mode, and we got that right from when we started, right? Like, our first version of our platform was not good. Like, it was not a great experience, but we got distribution right. We knew that there was a market there, and that was the important thing, right? Now we can plug and play with the V2 that we're coming out with in short order. So distribution becomes that much more important, and just really thinking about massive companies that can be built with Gen AI. That's, I think, how sort of SaaS and software survives in the era that we're in right now.
When you start to do it like that, it almost, it's like, you're starting to build a house like a modular home company in some sense
Yep.
because you know where
Yep.
your costs are, right? That was
Yep.
I built a couple of modular houses,
Yep.
big ones too, like 8,000 square feet,
Yep.
and I took 6 boxes, put them together, had them bolted together. I created this beautiful, beautiful house. But
Yep.
the only reason I did that there is because I can manage costs. Because the
Yep.
freaking contractors, the subcontractors were like shooting darts with a blindfolded. You never knew what kind of price you were going to charge you.
Yeah.
And then the
Yeah.
quality of the work, it was like, it was another thing. You're shooting darts, but if you had that in one ecosystem, I mean, that same ecosystem applies to everything, by the way.
Yep.
That
Yeah.
same
Absolutely.
thing, right? Because what Aristotle said, the sum of the parts. Actually, Aristotle said it: the sum of the parts equal the whole. And actually, Gestalt, which is in German, the sum of the parts equal the whole. That's
Yep.
what it's all about, and we haven't
Yep.
done it. Then you
Yep.
could do forecasted values going forward. If it costs a little bit more money, but it's going to be worth 10x in x number of years, or 5x or 2x. Is it worth it? And then it's worth putting the money in if you can
Yep.
forecast values. By the way,
Yep.
I worked on that 3 years ago, so I actually
Yep.
did something like that with one of the largest home contractors.
Oh,
And I
interesting.
just
Yep.
happened to
Yep.
have been friends with some folks, and I
Yep.
started running the models. The other
Yep.
thing is I looked at land values, so
Yep.
forecasted land values tied into that to
Yep.
build the houses. So where's the best place to optimize? If I put a dollar in, where am I going to get the best return?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what's interesting is that you have in the pre-Gen AI era, all this is fragmented, right? Where there's this data lives in certain data sets, and you can make certain predictive analytics and systems to be able to predict these things. And then the design is another silo. I think is about stitching all of these things together. I think now we're able to do it with Gen AI, right?
Yeah,
And with the
that's it.
systems
And we
designs,
haven't
right?
been able to. That's why contractors, building the house is like
Yep.
a whim du jour.
Yeah.
Right? You never knew
Exactly.
what you were going to get, and it's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yep.
You get somebody,
Yep.
oh, I'm a drywall contractor. They didn't know anything about it. I
Yeah.
knew could do a better job than him
Yep.
or her
Yep.
at doing the drywall, and they're supposed to be the expert. Then you get somebody
Yep.
that's kind of low key that is an expert that can do rounded entryways,
Yep.
right, and perfectly do them. It's crazy.
And that's where a lot of the the design softwares I think have fallen short in the past. Is that when you're thinking about space planning and floor plans, it's inherently very complex in terms of how you lay out space and what that looks like. But a lot of these systems have been built by engineers or architects, right? So if you take a look at the software themselves, they have 1,500 buttons and knobs. You can do everything within the platform. Just take a look at some of the major legacy players. You'll see that really quickly. What's nice about agentic workflows is that all of this can happen under the hood, and then the information that you need gets surfaced at the right time. You can make those decisions, right? So if you're talking about general contractors or builders, what they want is to be able to build, right? So if you're able to just surface information, it just works for them. That's when
Well,
they're really going to
you're
start adopting
getting
it.
a supply of deals,
Exactly.
and you can keep it because it's like, it's up and down and in and out. They got out there, they're
Yeah.
hustling all the time trying to get deals. But if you could solidify the deal flow, then you might
Yep.
be able to skinny the cost. Here's the thing I
Yep.
want to talk about.
Yep.
So, we're currently in a subscription based mode for a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the pricing of these models. But
Mm-hmm.
quite frankly, the more I start analyzing and looking at it, is that the right model, or should we do a value-based model?
That's a good question. I think that we're in this weird phase right now in between SaaS subscriptions and investors still taking a look at ARR numbers and MRR numbers. I think that's going to change pretty significantly as software is really changing alongside it. I think we're going to be going towards usage based. We already see usage based with API based pricing, some of the major model providers, and some of the larger creative tools when it comes to Gen AI. I think that we will be moving more towards out-based pricing though, as some of these outputs get better and better, and you really can automate the entire thing. So I think it's going to be a mix of output-based pricing, and then for us, it's going to be also a marketplace, potentially advertisement model as well, as we aggregate sort of all of the homeowners and those who serve them all under one platform. So I think that those models will evolve, but I really do think that the sort of heavy B2B seat-based pricing model that then really goes towards annual recurring revenue and monthly recurring revenue is really going to change really significantly. And like I was saying at the beginning, we see that already in public markets. That's like that model is changing significantly. I'd maybe have a question for you is, if you're taking a look at an investment, traditionally you've taken a look at annual recurring revenue or MRR growth. How are you thinking about sort of company valuations and how you index for that in a world that's changing around software pricing?
I just was doing a keynote yesterday
Mm.
with some of the top VCs, and one of the things we talk about, the model's flipped, right? So what's the thing that you look at in teams today? You
Mm.
look at the first place you start. I actually said it was like building a house, right? It's a
Yeah.
foundation. So you
Yeah.
look at the team that's open-minded, that really wants to
Mhm.
move forward in different
Yeah.
directions, and then you look where the market is
Yeah.
and where the market's going to go. So you look at exactly what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking the house is one thing, but planning everything. Everything
Oh
is
yeah.
planned, right?
Oh yeah.
So take that some of the parts equal the whole part. It's not
Hmm.
just about building the house. It's great to know the R values and the size of the Anderson windows that would go in, and
Yeah.
skylights and all this stuff. But when you can start forecasting cost and you can
Oh yeah.
start looking return, it changes everything. And I think that
Absolutely.
so what I look at, and what we deal a lot with the top tier family offices
Mm.
worldwide, and the families,
Mm.
they're looking at companies that are going to make an impact, not
Yeah.
just an API, but an impact. And
Yeah.
where does the market going to go? It's not just about houses; it's about everything, right?
Yeah.
It's planning
Absolutely.
everything, and
Yeah.
so having tools like Maket does,
Yeah.
and that it's going to change it, because now you know what your costs are. The variable has always been, how do you get the talent to put it together? So you got all
Yeah.
these, you got all these 2x4s
Yeah.
and 2x6s. Who's
Yeah.
going to do it that really knows what they're doing? And are
Yeah.
they just BS, and or are they going to tell you the truth, right? Oh,
Yeah.
I can do
Yeah.
that. I'm a framing contractor.
Yeah.
Well, if
Yeah.
I get the Amish to come in and do the
Yeah.
framing, I know I
Yeah.
don't have to worry about it, and I know they're going to
Yeah.
do it fast because they can
Yeah.
put a barn up in a day,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
And if you look at the, short, medium term, I think that putting all these pieces together and having more price certainty, that's going to be on the short and medium term. And everything around discoverability, it's like, looking for material providers using Instagram or TikTok and things like that, and being able to, and then what's the digital representation of their products within the floor plan, then getting cost certainty, and then who's going to do it. I think that's the short, medium term. If you take a look at long term, once robotics hits its chat GPT moment or its Claude moment, I think then we're going to be talking also about autonomous building, right? It's like new home builds, really, you're doing everything from start to finish. We're doing
Well,
Gen
because
AI
that
for
becomes
everything.
modular then, right?
Yeah,
That's actually becomes modular on
exactly.
site,
Yeah,
right? And that's going to
absolutely.
change things. When you do it, you bring 10 Optimus robots out and put them on the work, and they're not worrying about whether they got to do a ceiling. They're jumping up and getting it done. It's not like
Yeah,
it's not if it can be done; it's how fast
yeah,
it can be done
yeah,
and
and
how precise it can be done.
that's where there is a lot of hand wringing about AGI and job loss and what happens with models that get exponentially better. I really truly believe that we're just not thinking big enough in terms of what we want our future to look like and what we want the economy to look like. For us on our roadmap and what we want to do, the latest model advancement and what it can do from an agentic standpoint, it allows us to go faster, for me is just really encouraging, because we can just speed run a lot of what's on our roadmap to get to the place where you're doing everything from start to finish when you combine Gen AI and robotics, right? So I think that's funny. I don't know if a lot of other SaaS founders are having these internal conversations, but I think just like, how do you really rethink industries is going to be the core of what makes companies AGI proof, right?
Though, we're doing it every day, right? I'm dealing with, so on one side, you're dealing with the families that have 99% of the wealth, and then you're
Mm-hmm.
talking to the companies. The problem is, and I was with these investors yesterday, and one of
Mm-hmm.
the things that they're concerned about is they don't have the vision of where it's going to go. They're very,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times, they're engineers, and
Yeah.
the engineers don't have the visions.
Yeah.
They don't understand. Like, we
Yeah.
build building models, so I put about 4.5 million into
Yeah.
building some very sophisticated models, and we
Yeah.
started doing trust and empathy. I tokenized goodness using
Yeah.
a Skinnerian operant conditioning approach. Then I
Mm-hmm.
added Rogerian psychology, empathy, and
Mm-hmm.
compassion. Now you got something. You go in to build a house, and you've got an assistant basically that's like your grandmother says, listen, Patrick, I know that you like these
Yeah.
10, 12 pitches on a
Yeah.
family room. Here's a
Yeah.
37 by 17 family room with a 10, 12 pitch. And by the way, we got the three skylights that you like. And
Mm-hmm.
now let's try something different. Instead of a brick fireplace, let's put a stone. Here's a place
Mm-hmm.
we can get it. I'll get the Optimus robots to cut it in half.
Mm-hmm.
Let me
Mm-hmm.
visually identify the ones that are going to look best, and I'll build it for
Mm-hmm.
you. And this is
Mm-hmm.
that's possible in the
Yeah,
not too
it
distant
is.
future.
Yeah. I mean, like, and this is not even to mention all of the data centers that are being built right now, all of the compute that's not online, and all of the models just like we're not indexing for the models just exponentially getting better, right? So I know that white collar work is probably going to change significantly, but we need to be having a mindset of what it looks like within 5 or 10 years and what type of future we want to live in. And I keep on saying this is becoming more and more clear, saying the way that we build and renovate houses even a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, will look radically different probably in 5 years or in 10
Yeah,
years. And we're going to
because it
say,
was an
like, we lived
imprecise,
in the
it
Stone
wasn't
Ages, right?
science. It was like art. It was
Exactly.
an imprecise science. And
Yeah.
that you would have somebody picked up at
Yeah.
Home Depot and bring them
Yeah.
out to do the house, and it was crazy. But it's got to be precise, and that's
Yeah.
going to be. It's the same thing with mechanics for cars. The
Yeah.
same problem that you're doing on the house can be
Yeah.
applied to cars. I just had it happen. So I've got
Yeah.
a couple of classic cars, and I
Yeah.
couldn't figure it out. So I took my multi-agent model,
Yeah.
14 of them. I put
Yeah.
them on the problem. My master mechanic couldn't figure it out. The
Yeah.
Gen AI did it. Said,
Yeah.
Gary, look for a bolt that's
Yeah.
behind the alternator.
Yeah.
Most people can't find it.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, and it told me exactly what to do.
And my it was funny, my barber, he's in the process of renovating his house, and he was saying, it makes more sense for me to not show up at the barber shop and have my barbers just cut, and for me to stay home and renovate my house because it's less expensive than hiring an electrician to do it. And I was like, but Joy, you're not an electrician. Like, how do you do it? So I fired up Gemini and I used a camera to be able to say, like, how do I need to wire things up? And this is, it's a few months ago, so the models have progressed and he's figuring it out on his own, right? So I just think that, like, agency and the democratization of spaces, democratization has been used a lot, but agency and just being able to do things that you didn't think were possible that you could do before using these models and AI is really, like, empowering to people. And I think that another thing that we're not talking about enough is I do think that in the future, people will have maybe multiple careers, right? At the same time, simultaneously, to say, hey, like, half of my week, I'm going to be doing strictly creative work, like high value, strictly, creative work. Then another part of my week, it's going to be more sort of software, SaaS. And then it's, maybe I'm running a coffee shop at the same time, right? I think that, like, there's not that notion of saying what happens when we have a more abundance and we can actually explore what we want to do. And people have just been locked into singularly being an accountant or a financial analyst. I hope that we evolve our thinking around work, because I think that people would be much happier in life than just sticking to, like, I'm doing, like, my 9 to 5, just in spreadsheets, right? I don't know if people just like they have that life, but I don't know if they want to keep on living that type of life, right?
Well, I mean, the thing is, they don't know any different. The problem
Exactly.
is the freedom to be able to choose the kind of things. I mean,
Yeah.
right. The reason is if you hit the nail on the head, which not to be punny, but what happens is you've got a situation. I mean, I built a cancer vaccine for my dog a couple of years ago
Wow.
in a matter of
Yeah.
weeks because I used my tools to be able to help. I
Yeah.
had stage 3 kidney disease and sciatica, and I used my model. It told me mesenchymal stem cells from the umbilical cord. It told me exactly who to go to. I went over. My stage 3 kidney disease completely disappeared. My
Wow.
sciatica completely disappeared. My biological age went down 22 years. I've had
Wow.
it done 3 times. I'm one of 31 people out of 10,600 that's ever done it.
Wow.
And the reason I did it is because my AI told me it would work. And I took a leap of faith, Patrick. I
Yeah.
didn't know, but I know
Mm.
AI. I've been in it for 30 years. And I said,
Yeah.
I'm going to try it. Well, guess what? Your biologic clock goes down 22
Yeah.
years. What's it mean? How much is that worth?
Yeah. Well, now we need just one for my hairline and for balding, and then
But
we're
they
gonna be
have it. It
great. You
exists.
got to send it to me.
Yeah, no, it exists. You have to go get it done, but it exists there. Because what happens is when you turn back the clock, right?
Yeah.
So things like male pattern
Yeah.
baldness,
Yeah.
right,
100%.
which is genetically hooked to your mother, right, your
Yep.
grandfather and mother's
Yep.
side. But you
Yep.
can go down through these tools help in all kinds. That's another conversation, but that stuff I know too.
That's fantastic. I mean, I need it for sure.
Yeah. So anyhow, listen, we're coming to the top of the show. I love where we're going with this thing. We'll have to do another one.
Mm-hmm.
So some closing thoughts on how do people get a hold of you?
Yeah, so you can get a hold of me. I'm pretty active on X, formerly Twitter, or on LinkedIn, or you can shoot me an email at patrick@maket.ca. It's the easiest way to get a hold of me. Closing thoughts is I'm just really excited about the future and what we're building. I always say it doesn't make sense that we have a bank account to be able to track net worth and capital, and we don't have the equivalent for the most important asset that we own, which is our home, right? And that's really the vision that I want to try to play into, is how can we track value, how can we explore what's possible with our most precious asset. So yeah, I'm super excited about what we're working on with the team.
No, it's great. It's great having you here today. And like I said, you want to stay on for a few minutes after the show, we can talk. To all my audience out there, thanks for joining one more time. GSD presents Top Global Startups. My name is Gary Fowler, and I'm your host. Stay happy, stay safe, and stay healthy. I'll be back again soon with another exciting edition. Thanks, everybody. And a call out to the folks in Silicon Valley that I met yesterday when I was doing my keynote. Said they were going to watch the show today. So I hope you enjoyed it. And let's go get shit done. Thanks, and talk to you soon.